Thank you, Lauren. I'm really pleased to be here. What Lauren didn't mention was I became a first-time father a few weeks ago, so fortunately, thank you. I do have to fly out of here very early tomorrow morning, so I would definitely like to spend time speaking with many of you. Unfortunately, that time will be limited, I suppose, to this afternoon and this evening. So definitely, if there's some issues you want to talk about later on after this presentation, feel free to look me up this afternoon, and I definitely hope we have some time for Q&A when this is all said and done. I called this presentation Cruising on Cannabis, a primer to pot, pharmacokinetics, accident risk, and the law. And what we're basically going to talk about, or what I'm going to talk about for the next 40 minutes, we're going to talk a little science, we're going to talk about the law, we're going to talk about why, in this case, because we're talking about marijuana, that the science and the law are oftentimes mutually exclusive. And we're going to talk about some big words like pharmacokinetics, 11-hydroxy, delta-9, tetrahydrocannabinol, carboxy-THC. They sound intimidating, but really there's actually not a whole lot to these words. But it's important for you guys to speak the lingo and not be intimidated by the state toxicologist that they might bring in, or the district attorney or the police officer that suddenly thinks he's an expert in cannabis pharmacology but really doesn't know shit about it. We're going to talk a little bit about the types of DUID laws that are now on the books regarding marijuana. We're going to talk about pharmacokinetics, which is really just a long fancy way of saying that when you ingest a substance, how that substance is absorbed and metabolized by the body and then excreted by the body. We're going to talk about THC, one of the main psychoactive ingredients of marijuana, 11-hydroxy-THC, which is a psychoactive metabolite of marijuana, and carboxy-THC. We're going to talk about what these mean, when they show up on a drug test, what that means for whether your client was under the influence or not under the influence. We're going to talk about some trends in DUID legislation, where these laws are going. We're going to talk about the way the courts have interpreted these laws. And then at the end, I'm going to talk a little bit about what are the actual acute effects of smoking marijuana and driving. What are their effects on performance? What are their effects actually on the road? And how do these effects compare to the effects of alcohol? First, I want to talk a little bit about the types of DUID laws. The most common type of DUID law that you might encounter regarding marijuana is known as an effect-based law. There's also per se laws, and there's also zero tolerance per se laws. Those I'm going to talk about more in a minute. Real quick, what is an effect-based DUI law? An effect-based law prohibits drivers from operating a motor vehicle if they are under the influence of a controlled substance or if they are incapable of driving safely because of the recent ingestion of an illicit drug. Prosecution must prove that the driver's observed impairment was directly associated with the recent ingestion of an illicit substance. This is a multidisciplinary standard that focuses on the totality of circumstances. Most importantly, it has to focus on whether the driver shows demonstrable signs of impairment. And to win these cases, the prosecution primarily relies on evidence gathered at the scene by law enforcement, standard field sobriety tests. They might call in a drug recognition expert, see what he has to say. They might gather evidence at the scene where there's skid marks indicating that the driver was speeding. That sort of information, they need to have that information to make their case and persuade a judge or a jury that the individual in question had recently taken an illicit substance and they were too impaired by their ingestion to drive. This actually, prosecutions find, is oftentimes a difficult case to win. So as a result, they don't like this standard. They don't like effect-based standards. They feel that the deck is in fact stacked against them because, juries are very sympathetic to clients that they are told frequently use drugs and drive.